guest today is Adam Bishop. Welcome. Good to see you. Good to connect. And I'm looking forward to asking you a ton of crazy questions.
Bring it on, Syd. It's very nice to see you, and I am thrilled to be asked. Thanks for asking.
Maybe I could start by saying, where did your love of singing come from?
Oh, gosh. That's a good question. I grew up in a house where my mom played the piano, and my dad was musical as a child, but not as an adult. Isn't, but is a great appreciator of music. And I just don't have a cognitive memory of starting, but I know that I did the kind of typical music for young children program starting at age 2. Yeah. And I know that by age 4, I was singing in church. And so it's just always been present for me. There was never really a kind of a moment in time where I made an active choice to pursue or love singing. That being said, I have a distinct memory of being in grade 2. I was at Birds Creek Public School in grade 2. And at that time, the school board, Hastings County School Board, had a wonderful school board choir where they took the best singers from all of the schools in the district and rehearsed several times a week and did these great European tours and stuff. It was a really, really enriched and wonderful experience. And it started at grade 3.
Whoa. And
I was in grade 2. And I remember my teacher pulling me aside and saying, you need to go down to the music room and audition for this conductor, for this choir. And when he asks you what grade you're in, you need to say grade 3. And I just remember that as being this funny moment where she was kind of telling me to lie and go tell them that I'm in grade 3. And anyway, I did. I guess I followed the right instructions, and I did. And I joined that choir and sang with them from the earliest age. I was the youngest chorister in the choir, and then sang with them through grade 8 and got to tour Europe and do some pretty amazing things. But that really, I think, cemented for me a love of music at a high level, and made it something. Singing in a choir made it something that was social and community based and really fun and exciting, and more than just me trying to sing and learn and study. It was a greater kind of fun cause, particularly when I was only 8 years old or something like that. So that's a really formative time for sure.
Now, as a teenager, you were attending Lakefield College, and there was a gang of you who joined the Peterborough Singers, much to my delight and pleasure. Do you want to tell me what that experience was like?
Oh, it was wonderful. Ted Ingram was singing in the Peterborough Singers and was a teacher. I got lucky enough to catch him in his retiring year. At Lakefield was my grade 9 year. He was my French teacher. Yeah. And he, again, I got pulled along, and he said, you need to come with me to audition for Syd. And it was all a bit of a whirlwind, really, getting involved. And I think I auditioned before Christmas, and I wasn't ready to join the choir, but I came to Messiah, and I wore my green blazer, my number 1 dress, and I was an usher and in the top corner of the balcony. And I got to sit in the back row and watch Messiah. And that was, pretty exceptional and pretty exciting. And then I started, that would have been like January 2001. I started going in. Ted lived in Apsley and would drive by the school and pick me up on his way to rehearsal and take me back and forth. And I, have a huge debt of gratitude to him for getting me involved in that way. But I found it was really exciting to be a part of something at a high level with adults. That was a really kind of interesting and fun angle for me as a 14-year-old to be kind of involved in a community. And it was also really cool to, I was living in a boarding school, which is a very strong and very impactful community as well. It was also really cool for me to have something going on outside of that. So I really valued that.
Now, I recall that you participated in, I think we called Messiah at Home or something like that, and choristers sang the solo parts. Now, I believe you had you sang one of the solos from Messiah.
That's right. So that would have been my first solo opportunity with the Peterborough Singers. And I was singing in the choir, and then you asked me to sing the middle recitative parts of Thy rebuke hath broken his heart. You know, that whole kind of recitative story, 3 or 4 in a row there in a section. And that was really, exciting and empowering for me as a student to be able to do that in such a, on such a big scale. And I also remember there was a tenor named David who sang Comfort Ye in Every Valley. He was asked to sing those to start Messiah. And I remember having, that moment where I thought, oh, wow, I want to do that. I want to be the person that gets up at the start and sings this whole great big thing. And so that was, again, like reflecting back 20-ish years later, those were definitely kind of formative moments for me. And that was a really cool way for me to get involved. I think I've done Messiah. I'd have to.
You have done it. You have done it 5 times with us to our.
Okay.
5 times. And actually, one of my questions is about Messiah, and I think we've got to it sooner rather than later. And I'm sorry about the dog. I thought I'd cleared the room of dogs, but this one is around and moping. So what's going through your mind? You mentioned David Lee starting it off. What's going through your mind, having spent many, many years studying and so on, when you hear this and you're getting ready to take the breath?
The maybe corny answer, Syd, is it has to be comfort. It has to be comforting. That's the opening of the whole thing. And of course, there's this great overture and or prologue, and there's beautiful music that precedes that. But that's the first voice you hear, and it has to bring comfort. And then it also, in the context of the performance, has to bring a level of, I think, excitement and interest. Like, we're just getting started. We're going to be here for a couple hours, and it's going to be quite a journey. And so there's that excitement too. But I think I'm laughing. I think one of the things I always find is it's really exciting to get up and do Comfort Ye Every Valley, and then you sit until intermission. So one of the hardest things is then to just kind of sit down and remain poised and focused, because your night is by no means over, but you've probably got the better part of an hour of sitting with a few hundred people looking at you, and you can't go anywhere or do anything. And so, that's a really just a funny part of the way Messiah is.
Yeah, but I would say the soprano has the opposite problem. She's sitting there for 40 minutes before she opens her mouth and starts to sing and rejoice greatly and so forth, and the recitative just before that. So she's got to sit there, and she hasn't been able to warm up or anything, whereas you've come straight from being able to warm up. I still wonder, how on earth you cleared your throat, you don't have, you've got to just hit that B just perfectly, and every 5 times you have done it perfectly. And I just wonder the challenge there, what's going through the head of, I suppose if you're focused on comfort, then the rest takes care of itself.
I think so. I think you're thankful it's a B and not an F. Like it is in it's set well in the voice. It's something that, it's there. And it's truly, I don't know, it just, there's no magic formula. It just happens, but it really is beautiful. It's in the first 5 minutes of the whole piece, Messiah as a whole, but I actually think it's some of the best music. I'm probably biased, but I really think Comfort Ye is extraordinarily beautiful. So you kind of just get up there and do it and get out of the way and let the beauty of the music sing through.
Yeah. On a personal level, as you know, my young son was dying, and I had to make a decision on whether to conduct the Peterborough Singers for Messiah. And he actually said, "Go do it, Dad." And I did it. And he died later that night. And forever, for me, the beginning, Comfort Ye, is it's the beginning of a tremendous blessing for me. And I really appreciate what you say about comfort and giving that message to your audience. Surely many have been through tragedy or something in the previous year, and it's just very powerful. Anyway, I'm getting too emotional now, and I want to switch to something. My understanding, you took your bachelor degree in music at Queen's University. You have a master's in vocal performance from U of T, and of course, you're a graduate of the prestige Glenn Gould School. But I understand that when you first went to Queen's, you didn't actually start off in music, but there was something else. Can you tell me about that?
That's right. I had aspirations of being a doctor, and not small aspirations. That was really a significant goal for me at the time. And I started at Queen's in doing a life sciences degree, and I had however many courses, I think 8 courses, and I had 7 that were in the kind of medical or pre-medical science world, and I got to take a vocal music class. And that was my kind of elective course. And that was really great. And a few weeks into the year, I auditioned for the student opera, which was a huge unknown for me. So to that point, I had sung in choirs. I had done some small solo stuff, but I had not really done any kind of substantive classical singing. And I got cast as the lead tenor in the student opera, and so that really opened a big door, and one now that was kind of audacious to walk through when I think about it. But so the long story short is, and then I got kind of pulled, and I thought, oh, music has been really fulfilling and inspiring to me. In my second year university, I can take more music courses, still have organic chemistry and anatomy and pharmacology, still kind of have these prerequisites for medical school taken care of, and I'll figure out what that looks like later. And then I kind of caught wind of programs. I think McMaster at the time was a medical program that was really valuing diversity in terms of experience for applicants to medical school. So it looked to me at that time like there was a path to apply to medical school with a Bachelor of Music degree. So I switched degree programs, though always kind of keeping these pre-medical courses on the side. And then I wrote the MCAT exam after third year, and I still had med school in my sights. But when I finished my bachelor degree in music, I applied to do, that's when I went to the Glenn Gould School. And I thought, I've got to give this a shot. I've got to, I'm finding it interesting and exciting and fulfilling, and I've got to kind of see this through. And so I actually had a conversation with you around that time, Syd. I remember you said, you're kind of, you said, if you stop now studying professionally, you will be a gifted amateur, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I remember thinking, oh, that's pretty great. He said, but you'll not be a professional. Like you won't actually get out and go to that next level and get work and actually try to make a living from singing and kind of, live that life. And I remember that just kind of being, a really interesting marker, and just kind of saying, oh yeah, there is more to this. And I was really excited to see kind of what was, ahead potentially. And I had a great time at the Glenn Gould School. That was a wonderful environment, really small class cohorts. So there were only like 8 of us studying in vocal performance at the time. And we had kind of all of the same classes together. It was really kind of just a small group, and studying a really kind of interesting spectrum of all musically related courses, but kind of ranging from, dramatic performance to business and marketing for singers, to kind of movement and yoga, to, language and diction and all these other things. So it was a really, really interesting experience. But a long way away from pre-med year one at Queen's.
Yes. And then I guess I wanted to ask you about this. That tended to be opera a fair bit. And you had some wonderful roles, The Count in Marriage of Figaro and so forth. And that you then went on to do your master's at U of T in vocal performance. So I'm more an oratorio guy than opera, just the way life has worked out, in case you haven't noticed. Which do you prefer? How do you compare those two? The roles are so different, aren't they, in opera as opposed to oratorio? And you do both superbly.
It's really interesting. Which do I prefer? I don't know if I have a clear answer on that. I have always really enjoyed oratorio. For me, it was always a bigger thrill than recital or art song, and I love art song, don't get me wrong. But I really like oratorio. I like being a part of a greater thing. That's probably because I grew up in choirs. You know, I have that kind of passion. Oh, see, top of the pile, Verdi Requiem is my very favorite.
These are all oratorios that you sang with us. Elijah, Verdi Requiem, and then two of the greatest Bach pieces out there, the Saint John and the B minor Mass. And I just have a little snippet here that I wanted to bring to your attention. After the Saint John Passion, which is of course the story of the arrest, the whole the passion story, Jesus put to death on the cross. It's full of sadness, but at hope at the same time. And you had the demanding role of the evangelist. Plus, I think we persuaded you to sing a few of the tenor arias too. So you sang about 600 times more notes than anyone else in that evening. And I received this back from one of our audience members after that performance. And she said about you, "It was a real pleasure to listen to Adam communicate the story, which we've been told over and over again. His delivery really made me want to listen." So you had that ability. Every time you've sung with us, the technique is flawless, the notes are flawless, you communicate, it's a lot of fun and so on. But here she is picking up on how you told the story, and it made a fresh impact on her as she listened. And you do that really well. Do you want to talk about that? The role of the evangelist and what you're trying to do?
The evangelist is, unique really among oratorio because you are that constant narrator throughout. And it's not really unique because there's two of them, St. John and St. Matthew. But it's a pretty special opportunity, and it's really challenging because you have the opposite of that problem we talked about with Messiah, where you have these long gaps where you're not singing. As the evangelist, at most you get the break of a big chorus. So there can be it's a really interesting challenge because you kind of get up and start and you don't stop. And you want to make sure you're really dialed in because you don't want to come in with the wrong lead in to the next chorus either. And, but that's also, it makes live music exciting. And I remember doing a St. John Passion, and I was the evangelist, and I did a big, and Jesus said, and Jesus didn't get up to speak. It was one of these kind of moments, and it was a wonderful, wonderful singer. I won't say it was a wonderful, lovely singer, but it was kind of one of these little elbow nudge. It's your turn, but that's kind of a thrill and fun of live performance. But the evangelist, is pretty special because you get to tie the entire story. Obviously, it's a story everyone knows and has heard so many times, but you really are in charge of crafting that narrative through the whole thing, and it's just really exciting. I've really enjoyed that. I've done it a number of times. I would say it's one of my very favorite pieces to perform.
We'd love to have you back for Matthew Passion, evangelist. if we can ever pull that together, because yeah, and you really are the key person as evangelists in both those works, because if there's any awkwardness or where are we now, or it's just bang, 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 and the drama demands that things just unfold instantly. There's no time to just ruffle around and, oh, what page are we on? It just has to happen. And we so enjoyed your evangelists with us. Okay, tell me about the demands of your becoming a professional singer, of continuing to work. I do remember a long time ago, a friend of mine was studying at Eastman School piano, and he was doing a master's and got some support from a friend of mine. But the friend thought, well, that's not really work, you know, you're just sitting at the piano having fun. And my friend who was sponsoring him owned a restaurant, and he knew what hard work was. It really is, but it's a different kind of hard work. And we just could not explain to him how incredibly intense and tiring it is to sit at a piano, or even more so to be working on your voice. I think I'm an organist, and I could perhaps compare that to playing soccer. You got to use your feet pretty well, and you got to move around and play and so on. But it's not the same as a singer. To me, a singer has to know themselves. They're constantly listening to their body. They're getting feedback. They're trying to understand their own body in a way that a thick organist like me, well, just tell your feet to do something and they do it again. Whereas you are constantly assessing and being in touch with your body in a way that us organist guys don't have to. Am I right?
Well, I think the answer is yes. It's a huge part of singing, and it's I would say it's more important to know your body from a technical perspective in such a way that that's not what you're thinking about when you're singing. So when you are up there thinking about this B that starts comfort ye, the last thing you're thinking about is the note. And you really are focused on comfort. You're focused on being present to the audience. You're focused on listening to the orchestra or the organ, or those things. So technique from that perspective, and knowing your body, that internal working is you got to do all the hard work in the practice room and really kind of internalize everything, so that when you get out in front of an audience, that's not what you need. Or that's not something that's taking energy from you. Now, that's an idealism, but I would say, because a singer's instrument is in their body different than any other, you are not always 100% every day. So that's something that's a really interesting challenge, is learning how to sing through certain things, and not necessarily just illnesses, but just moods and emotions and times of day. There are times you have to get up and sing first thing in the morning because that's when the radio hit is, or whatever. But that's never I've never met a singer that liked to sing first thing in the morning. Or conversely, you're singing 3 late shows back to back to back, operas that are you're up until well after midnight, and you've got to get up and do that the next day. So knowing your body and knowing that your technique is there and is reliable is a really big part of figuring out how to sing at a high level. Because even if you are the most wonderful, beautiful musician and have a great instrument and can really, got really good chops, if you're not reliable, you won't succeed because, a huge part of this industry, it's a challenging industry with limited opportunity, and it's obviously a performance-based industry. You sign up to be there at 8 o'clock and be ready to sing, and so if you can't find a way to do that with a certain level of reliability, it's really going to impact your career viability and livelihood ultimately. Yeah. So that's another reason, not just the musical reason, but also the practical reason to really make sure you know yourself.
As you know, Peterborough Singers, we've always had a special place for emerging artists. We, of course, have invited some of Canada's finest artists to be a part of our program and brought them to Peterborough and to engage with our choristers. But we have always just loved to give emerging artists a chance. And I guess I wanted to ask you, what are the challenges for an emerging artist? You want to do this, you want to chase music, you want to be professional. What are the sacrifices you have to be prepared to make?
Gosh, so challenges for an emerging artist, availability of good jobs, because there are, the Peterborough Singers have been wonderfully supportive of young artists and emerging artists, but not every organization has that inclination or the resources to be able to do that. So there really aren't that many jobs. And then, fundamentally, as the kind of classical music world kind of reduces in overall size anyway, I think young artists are facing competition for some of those jobs from really established professional singers, whom 10 or 15 years ago weren't working on that scale necessarily. And so I think they're feeling that pressure from both ends. And the other thing I'd say is, school is expensive, and sometimes there are great resources to help and support, which is great. But there's also now really a culture and expectation that young artists will go to school through the academic year and then sing and participate in one or more summer programs through the summer. And while that's a really enriching experience, I was really fortunate to do several really high-end programs and learned a lot. It also means students don't have time to work usually in the summer because they're jumping between different places. So you kind of then end up with a 12-month cycle through your kind of academic years where it's really hard to generate any kind of external revenue, other than some folks are lucky to get church jobs or solo jobs along the way, that type of thing. But it's definitely an uphill battle with a lot of uncertainty on the other side. And, I think most people you find who have been successful in that world really feel like it was their calling, and it was just like the thing they had to do. So they were just so all in the whole way. There was never any other choice or a second thought. And I envy those people, because I think that's a really, wonderful attitude and a really great way to kind of take on what is a really, really challenging industry.
I understand too that the route for many vocalists is to leave Canada and to go to, say, Germany and work for 3, 4, 5, 10 years or something like that, where there are more opportunities. I don't know how you do that if you have a family and so on. That's a tough call, isn't it?
It certainly influenced my path in terms of kind of seeking professional opportunities outside of singing. I had, I worked with, really, really world-class tenor for a number of years. Well, I could say it, Richard Margison. He wouldn't mind me saying that. So, I studied with Richard at his summer program in Halliburton, the Highlands Opera Festival, which is just absolutely wonderful summer program at a really, really high level. And Richard and his wife Val, who's the co-artistic director, and she's a stage director, also understand the pressures young artists are facing, and they run that program with no cost to students to be a part of it. That's a really significant and meaningful thing they do. But I remember having a conversation with Richard, who was at the time the most performed tenor in the history of the Metropolitan Opera. That may have changed since, I don't know, but his total number of performances at the Met was number one, which is amazing. And he said, his daughter at the time, who now has become a wonderful singer of her own acclaim and amazing work. His daughter was about 18 or 19, I think, at the time. And he said, if you added up all of the time I've been away, I've probably been away 15 or 16 years of her 18 years of age. Yes. And that was a really kind of impactful statement for me. And I thought, while that is noble and valuable, and certainly what is required to be a successful world-class singer. Right. Well, that was kind of a first clue for me that I thought maybe this isn't the life for me.
Yes.
Maybe I am, my priorities in terms of what I want in my own life day to day are not going to be conducive to a professional career in music. And
Well,
so
you've got a career in philanthropy and you are very good at it. How do you think the discipline that you learned as a musician has made you so successful as I think your present career title at the moment is manager of infrastructure endowment at Trinity College School?
Philanthropy is a wonderful, wonderful world. It's a world of opportunity, and it's a world of relationships and really making things possible. And, what is required to be successful in this world is strong communication skills, discipline, strong collaboration skills. I think these things are all analogous to a life in music, studying music at a certain level. And so, just as the evangelist has to be the person that gets up and tells the story of Christ, in a funny but not dissimilar way, someone working in philanthropy as a fundraiser has to connect a potential donor to the story of a cause and bring them along a journey and show them the impact of their action or their talent or their investment in something. And so in so many ways, it's not dissimilar. And I would even argue that there are times in philanthropy when you're kind of going into a big meeting and really excited about a big ask or a really great potential outcome, that it feels like you're in the dressing room ready to go on stage. It's very similar feeling to you, because you've done all the preparation, you do all the work in advance, and then you have to get to the meeting and at the place and the time, much like a musical performance where you've done all the work and the curtain goes at 8 o'clock and you got to be there and you got to be ready. Yeah. So it's a funny thing, and it certainly has been a complementary world for my skill set. And I'm really fortunate and feel privileged that I am able to keep singing as much as I choose to, really. And I'm so grateful that opportunities keep coming to me and I get to do it. And because it's still a huge passion and a hugely important part of my life.
Got it. Well, you are going to be singing with the Peterborough Singers in a few weeks, November 27th, at our Yuletide Cheer concert, the first time that we are going to be singing in 22 months or something like that. It's going to be very emotional for us. And I have decided with a lot of advice that we should be revisiting many of the old favorites. This is not a time to put a whole bunch of new stuff in front of our audience. And I have asked you, and you very graciously responded to that, and you're going to sing a couple of favorites to us. How do you feel? How do you feel about that? What's your goal when you're in front of a crowd of people just not too long before Christmas, whether you're Christian or Jewish or just there's something in the air at that time of year, and you are going to sing something which you've sung a million times before, and we're going to all start crying when we hear you sing Jesu Bambino, and yet you're going to, yes, what do you think? What do you want to say about that?
Well, I think music plays such a strong role in holidays, festivals of all cultures. And so this is kind of a traditional Christmas, world we're talking about, but the getting together with family and friends, celebrating in a traditional way, coming together and hearing a choir, even annually, if that's kind of a part of a tradition for you, is meaningful and impactful. And I just think this year, even more than any year of recent memory, coming together after 20 plus months of an absence of live performance and choral singing and people being able to get together and do this sort of thing will be tremendously impactful. I think for me, certainly, the traditional carols, revisiting the Christmas is a really, really meaningful tradition. And it's been really fun already it's only November 6th today as we record this, but I can't stop my 4-year-old from already kind of being excited about Christmas is coming, and we're going to sing and we got to learn. And he's learning to play the piano, so he wants to learn to play carols on the piano. And it's just a really kind of universally joyful thing, and I certainly brings me great pleasure, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. So I'm thrilled to be asked, and I'm looking forward to seeing so many friendly faces in such a wonderful place, both of audience and of the choir, and being able to enjoy what we've all been missing so much for such a long time.
Okay, I want to end this. I'm very grateful for all these comments here. It's absolutely fascinating for me as I consider my own career and things that have happened and my passion. But this is coming from left field. What is it like to be at a Blue Jays game and be the guy who is singing not just the Canadian anthem, but the American as well? You've done that several times.
Well, it's funny you say that's from left field. That's pretty good, Syd. It was a tremendous pleasure for me. I'm a big baseball fan. So the opportunity to sing the anthem at a Jays game was like a bucket list, thing for me. And I got to do 4 games. The really lucky thing was the first game I did was a Sunday afternoon Yankees game. And it was a bobblehead day. And because they were giving out the bobbleheads, of course, they give them out to the first, 20,000 fans who line up. But because it was a bobblehead day, everyone was there early and the place was packed, which is not always the case when the anthem happens. Sometimes people are kind of trickling in and trying to rush to their seats and whatnot. And so it was a thrilling experience, because you're kind of just get there and you're standing there, and then you look and it was sold out, 50,000 people, and they were all right there. And the trick is, I don't know to give away secrets. The trick is you just stare up at yourself on the Jumbotron. So you're really not too worried about anybody else around you or what's going on. But it was a really fun experience. And I certainly for me, it was as fun to be out there singing as it was to then go back down through the dugout, and you're kind of standing next to players while they're warming up, and the manager tips his cap at you or whatever. That was as fun for me as the singing piece. Plus you get 4 great seats, so you get to watch the game.
Yes, I think singing the American national anthem, first of all, it's got incredible tessitura. You're really low, then you're really high, and it's pretty long. I would be petrified about not remembering the words. I can't even remember the words, especially after the changes for the Canadian national anthem. But then you guys are experts at memorizing words, aren't you?
The U.S. national anthem is I think, really fun to sing. It's a beautiful, wonderful piece of music, and it is challenging because it goes way down and it goes way up, and that's even I'm a bit of a purist. I'm not really into the 3-minute long embellished kind of version of the anthems. And when you do them at the Jays game, I can't remember what it is, but I think you got 1 minute and 10 seconds or something like that. So there's just not time to mess around and make more of it than necessary. It's not the Super Bowl. So you have to be pretty efficient. But really fun experience.
Adam, it has been a delight to talk to you today. We thank you for many years of your involvement with the Peterborough Singers, the inspiration you brought us, the comfort you have brought us, and we look forward to many more performances with you. So thanks so much for your time today, and we wish you the very best.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Syd, and I look forward to seeing you and all the singers in a few weeks. It's going to be great.